Mountaineer Nation, Big 12 Nation, welcome to the Voice of College Football, West Virginia style. We're here tonight, and we're going to talk about Colorado coming to the Big 12. As everybody knows, that's old news now, but who could follow them? We've got a couple of guests in backstage with us that I'll bring in here in a minute. But who could follow them to the Big 12 out of the Pac-12, but not just there, maybe even out of a group of five, let's say a UConn or a Gonzaga. So a couple of things real quick, and I want to read a couple of statements here. So the Pac-12 came out with a statement, and I'll read that real quick. It says the Pac-12 is comprised of world-leading universities and athletic programs who share a commitment to developing the next generation of leaders, supporting student athletes, academic and athletic excellence, and broad-based success. We remain committed to our shared values and to continue to invest in our student athletes. Today's decision by the University of Colorado has done nothing to disrupt that commitment. We are focused on concluding our media right deal and securing our continued success and growth. Immediately following the conclusion of our media rights deal, we will embrace expansion opportunities and bring new fan markets and excitement and value to the Pac-12. So it looks like when they do get a media rights deal, they will look at expansion and not till then. So now I've heard a lot of talk about Oregon State. Of course, we've heard it all about Oregon, Washington, the Four Corners. We've heard it all. Oregon State put out a statement that says Oregon State University joins with other Pac-12 members and reaffirming our commitment to the long-term strength and vitality of the conference. We are united by our shared values, our passion for the highest level of intercollegiate athletic competition, our leadership roles as Tier 1 research university, and our support for student athletes, academic, and athletic excellence. We trust that the Pac-12 will secure a media deal that will strongly benefit the institutions that are remaining loyal to this conference. As of all of us at Oregon State will continue to work hard and diligently to continue the long-term membership and success of our athletic department at a national level. So that's a couple of statements. Here's how I'm feeling, and I'm gonna bring these guests in, and we're gonna talk about this. But the Pac-12 has sat on their hind ends forever, right? They should have got something done, and I don't blame just George Kliavkoff for this. Yes, he's the main reason for it, but university presidents have had several meetings. They've had several Pac-12 meetings, and the university president, before they left that meeting, should have put his fist down and said, "No, we're not leaving till we iron this out. I want a decision. We've got to know something and stuff." So, but we're going to talk about all that. We're also going to talk about some other news that's developing. So, Brett McMurphy, I haven't seen the interview yet. I've only heard about it. I talked to David Smoke today, and possibly Florida State is talking about jumping ship out of the ACC on August the 15th. And the ACC has opened up the door for expansion and looking at West Virginia and SMU. Now, I will say this real quick. I don't believe that move will ever make it. West Virginia just signed a new contract with the Big 12. And so, that's the thing about that. I don't believe that'll happen. There's $100 million buyout to get out of the Big 12. And I know precedents was set with with Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12. Precedents was set to bring that money down to like $50 million a team. But at the same time, they couldn't cut that. West Virginia couldn't leave the Big 12 if the buyout was $35 million, in my opinion. But I got a couple of guys backstage with me. Number one, we'll bring in host of the Wolfman's Call right here on this West Virginia channel, Mr. Dale Wolfley, former player from West Virginia University. How you doing, Dale?
All right on, Joey. What's up? What's up? Amen, baby. Mountaineer Nation. Woo!
That's right. And I've also got another guest with us, and this guest has been saying for quite a while now, the Pac-12 is not going to dissolve. There's no team going to jump from the Big 12 or the Pac 12 over to the Big 12. And that is Tie Guy, Jeff. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, how we doing?
Good, good, good.
I will be the first to tell you I was wrong, and it's the first time in history that any university has left a conference to go to another university with lower academics. It's the first time in 100 years that has happened.
Well, actually, I thought you were going to say something else when you said I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong.
No, I was
it's
wrong.
and then when you said it's the first time in history, I was going to say, now wait a minute, Jeff.
No, I've been married and divorced, so I've been wrong
Okay.
many times in my life. I'm used to it.
All right, so Wolfman, let me ask you a question real quick. What did you think about Colorado's move over to the Big 12? You like it?
Oh, I love it. Are you kidding me? You bring it into Colorado instead of a UCF, a Houston, or a Cincinnati. I mean, that's got tradition right there. It's a buff. Yeah, man, I like it a lot. I think if they're going to expand, it's better to expand with a Power 5 rep than a G5, in my opinion. A school that has some clout to it, has had success in the past. They're a national championship program, and they've been a storied program. And there's a lot to be desired by having a Colorado in there. If you're going to add, like I said, if you're going to add, and what you just read off in the Pac-12, wah. All right. I mean, what you just read is just went in one ear and out the other. All right. Any of those Pac-12 teams would be like, yo, can I go ahead and get me some $31.8 million? Because right now we have no TV deal. We got no significance. The Pac-12 has had no significance. It has been UCLA, USC to the Big Ten. What you got left? You got to what? You think San Diego State's going to come in there and make it all right? It's just like the Big 12. You got to replace Texas and Oklahoma. You need to bring in some names. You need to make a splash. That's nowadays. That's just so you can be considered in the big remake. You have to be considered as a power conference. And the ACC, you want to talk about that? They're not right there right now. They're number 4 to me. Pac-12,
I think so.
The top 3 has got to be Big 10, SEC, and the Big 12. And you have to stay there. And don't talk about West Virginia going to a 4th-rated conference when they got in a 3rd. Okay, because we need to stay there, and we need to start having success to go ahead and build upon that. Because no one wants to invite losers. Nobody does. Right. And don't say Colorado's a bunch of losers, because now you got Dion, who's the biggest story of 2023 and 2022.
Now, I'll add that don't mean he can coach. That don't mean he can coach Power 5 level.
He coached where he was at the last time.
Right. But I'm talking about
Power 5. You're not going to tell me that bull crap.
Yeah, but wait a minute. He won't be in Colorado in 3 years. I mean, this is a stepping stone. We all know that.
Well, is that another guess or what? I mean, I can't tell the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but I mean,
trust me, if Florida State comes calling or Auburn comes calling or that, you know he's gone.
Hey, you know what? You could very well be right. But right now, he is the biggest hire. He's the biggest news, and he's the biggest flash. And that's the truth. You can't deny it.
Oh, no, that's true. I mean,
and
Colorado did an awesome job hiring him.
Yeah, and now the Big 12 has that flash coming in next year, so So, it would be great if Colorado could come out and have a 6-6 year. Sure beats 1-11 from last year. They could come out this year and have a 6-6 year, and it shows some progress and a lot of hope. They would come in with a lot of energy going into the Big 12. So Taga, you mentioned something to me a while ago about Oregon and Washington talking to the Big Ten, or the Big Ten having a meeting.
Yeah, what I've heard, and I got this from somebody who has knowledge with the meetings that have went on in the Pac-12. First of all, the biggest problem with the Pac-12 has always been the last 7 months. Cal, Stanford, and Arizona State are the 3 schools that every time the other schools have tried to say we need to expand, we need to talk about this contract, because they've had 2 contracts brought up that people haven't talked about. But every time Stanford, Cal, and Arizona State have been against it, it's caused Oregon, Washington, Colorado to try to put some pushback But supposedly Oregon State and Washington State sided with Cal, Arizona State, and Stanford, and those votes have always fallen through. And that's why the Pac-12 is where we are today. If the Pac-12 7 months ago would have added a team, possibly two teams, would have even taken a bad deal at what I'm hearing was around 27, 28 million, Colorado would have stayed. But because it's continued to go on, and every time they turn down a negotiation, the next negotiation has become worse. So I am hearing that Fox has decided that they don't want to take a chance of losing Oregon and Washington, that they want to add them to the Big Ten. The Big Ten has been talking to both Oregon and Washington. And I don't know that this number is 100% correct, but the number I'm hearing is they're offering them between 40 and 45 million for the next 6 years to come over to the Big Ten. And that from Ohio State insiders, they would have the votes from the Big Ten presidents to allow Oregon and Washington over at that price, because Fox would be willing to pay that much. Fox is not willing to pay, what is it, the $75 million that the other schools are getting right now, but they would pay 40 to 45 million for each, Oregon and Washington.
All right, so let's Wolfman, let's just assume for a second. That's all we can do is assume. Let's assume that that report is correct, and Oregon and Washington are considering going to the Big Ten. What team do you think in the Big 12 should be the next target? Should it be a UConn, who's a group of 5 right now, obviously, but should it be a UConn so we can get the great basketball, or should we go after an Arizona who has great basketball and a football tradition?
Well, if you're asking me what I prefer, it's absolutely Arizona, because there's a history. Again, I want a G or a Power 5 instead of G5. I've coached at West Virginia football. I've gone up there to Connecticut, and football is 35,000 seat stadium, and football is not very well received in Connecticut. Now, if you go ahead, you can say, well, you can get the New York views. I don't see a whole lot of New York views back in the day when we were in the Big East with UConn. There weren't a whole bunch of New York views because no one gave a dang about them. Okay, so if you could say that's a TV market, whatever. If you want what I want, I'd say I'd rather get Arizona, get that Phoenix area, that 5 million, 6 million people, the population. You want that TV market, and we get the basketball team as well. The two of them are a good tradition, good schools that are being recognized, Power 5, and their academics are excellent there at U of A. Excellent. So that only enhance the absolute going into the Big 12. It only enhances the Big 12. You like UConn, people like it because they're basketball. Basketball doesn't pay the bills. Football does.
So here's my thought on all of this. So right now, the Big 12, after this year, will stand at 13 teams with Colorado coming in. They'll be at 13 teams after this year. And, of course, we all think that conferences need to have an even number. That's not true. If they don't have any divisions, they won't necessarily have to have an even number. So I would be like this. If I was a Big 12 commissioner or worked in the office, I would say, let's hold pat, no group of 5s, nothing but Power 5 schools, if they can hold their own as far as value. So if Arizona wants to come to us, they can hold their value. Yeah, we'll bring Arizona. But if Arizona's not interested, and Arizona State and Utah, then let's leave the Pac-12 alone, and let's hold off and see what happens over here in the ACC. Because if this report is correct today about Florida State has told them they have until August 15th, and that's because on August 15th, they have to let them know that they're going to leave the conference by August 15th. So supposedly they're going to make a decision August 15th. So if the ACC doesn't give Florida State more money, they may bounce. And if they do bounce, it would cost them hundreds of millions of dollars if they can't get out of the grant of rights. But let's say they were able to do that and get out of there. and the ACC starts falling apart, or they have 8 people that all together and that just dissolves the conference, then we could go after as a Big 12 and get some East Coast teams and get some Pitts, Virginia Techs, and stuff like that. I say take Colorado, and we're far enough west. I don't think we need to go any further west myself. I think we need to start concentrating on some Eastern teams and maybe hope for the ACC, to either dissolve or some teams wanting to leave and maybe having a chance at those teams and being done with it that way. Or, add in UConn. I want an Eastern team. I don't want any more Western teams myself. We only have Cincinnati, West Virginia, and UCF over here on the East Coast. So we need another Eastern team. Taga, what do you think?
But here's my thing. I agree that the Big 12 does not need to rush right now. Right now, the Big 12 is in a great position. They shouldn't be in a hurry. But I do think that if Arizona is willing to go, you sign them right away. I mean, Arizona would be a great get. And then after that, I think you wait and see what Florida State's going to do. If the ACC opens up, obviously, there's a few better teams in the ACC than what the Pac-12 would offer. But I'm wondering, and this is not a power school, but, you could get possibly an Oregon State, a Washington State, that'll give you the other time zone. You can get a Utah. I don't know that right now Arizona State is smart enough to jump the sinking ship because they're one of the people who are putting the holes in the boat right now. I don't know that Dr. Crow sees it as a problem. I do believe that Dr. Crow, I do believe Cal and Stanford really think they're going to weather this storm. And unfortunately, I think you got Oregon State who makes, Joey just read the statement, but behind closed doors, they're talking to the Big 12. You got Arizona who's making statements, but behind closed doors, and let's be honest, the Big 12 is smart. They say they're only going to have 14 teams. There's only one spot left. We know that's a lie, but they're throwing that out there because they want everybody to make a move immediately thinking, I either take the lifeboat or it's gone. And so I do think the Big 12 should take Arizona. After that, I don't know. I would wait until at least August 15th to see what the ACC does. That's my take.
So, it's nice that we're talking a little bit about Oregon because Connor Johnson is in the chat right now. Of course, he's an Oregon State fan. I'm talking about Oregon State. He's a Beaver. So I like the fact I've heard a lot about Oregon State, and I read an article back, I think it was July the 6th. It was just a couple of days after 4th of July. I read an article out of Oregon State stating that Oregon State was trying to get the attention of the Big 12. They were doing everything they could to get the attention. That came from a beat writer right there at Oregon State. That was not something that was out here by Brett McMurphy or somebody like that. This was a beat writer there at Oregon State, writing that Oregon State's trying to get the attention of the Big 12. I would say that attention's, they could throw their name in the hat right now and have a good shot to come in with Colorado. And speaking of the chat, let me give a shout out to the chat right now. And if you would, be sure and hit that like button on the video, get more people in here. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a member. But a shout out to the chat. Mountaineer there with Kenny. Thanks, Kenny, for being here. Yvette's in here. Connor Johnson, thank you for being here. We love our Oregon State fans. Packer 910, thanks for being here. John the Automo, love our Michigan fans too. Thanks, John, for being here. Kenny Evans, appreciate you being here as well. Packer 910. Sorry, I'm got to go through here to see. Exploring with Ben and Sam. Great to have you here. You guys check out their channel, Exploring with Ben and Sam. They've got a great channel. Just visited the catacombs. Paxton, nice to have you in here. Traveling Fools, Miami fan. Nice to have our Miami fans in here with us. And of course, the voice of college football himself, Mr. Mark Rogers, in here with us. Appreciate you being here with us, Mark. Christian, thanks for being here. And, we've got quite a few, and I'm sure I'm skipping some and missing some. I see Twisted Rooster, I missed him and things. I apologize if I missed you. Mike Fort, see you in there too. I appreciate you guys being here. Ballard, everybody. We got everybody in here tonight. We got Alabama fans. We got Georgia fans. We've got Michigan fans. We got them from all over the country in here with us tonight. And that's great. I appreciate you guys all being here and stuff. So Wolfman.
Yo.
So we've got this thing about, like I had mentioned before we started the show, Oregon State, issuing their statement today that they're holding tight with the Pac-12. But hey, last week, Colorado did that as well, right? We've got all these universities coming out making these statements. They're not going anywhere. They're happy in the Pac-12. They're staying right there. Colorado did that same stuff last week. You read anything into these statements at all, or do you let them go?
As I just said in the beginning, in one ear, out the other. Of course, you have to defend for yourself. Of course, you have to look out for yourself, because the problem with the Pac-12 is they've been reactive and not proactive. They have poor leadership up top because they obviously can't keep them together. They went ahead. They lost USC and UCLA, the biggest city in the country, in the area, and the two prestigious teams. And they lost to the Big Ten. They have to cross the Mississippi to play a lot of the Big Ten schools. All right, so the travel thing, all that, they lost it on the West Coast right there. Right there is telling you, man, this is a problem. San Diego State is not a reliable entrance in there. Oregon State, as you were just talking about, they need to look for them to themselves, and they need to have to defend for themselves, because right now it's every school for itself. Colorado just did that. Colorado, who's had in the Pac-12 the last 12 years, they've been to 2 bowl games. They have not succeeded. I have a right here an article by Gary Barnett, former coach of Colorado, talking about the loss of the money. They lost probably over $80 million in that move. They lost $80 million to the Pac-12. And I know you're talking about the subsidies to the school and the endowment fund, but we're talking about active money, keeping your program alive and being in the spotlight in the nation. And in the Pac-12, there's been absolutely, when you look at the TV ratings, because half the country is going to bed by the mid-afternoon at the times they're out there playing at 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock, and it's later, and people have been drinking all day watching the SEC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12, and they're all getting and they're winding on down. The Pac-12 is starting, and the TV has been down. Why do you think there's so many of this? So you have to look at all these things together for the national. What is your observation? What is your look? And for the Pac-12, whatever they say that they're together and they're staying together, I don't believe it. And if I'm wrong, I may be wrong, but go ahead and play San Diego State. You lose. It's like a Big 12 losing Texas, Oklahoma. You cannot just go sit there and replace with Houston and Cincinnati or UCF, even no matter what the potential is. You have to have some clout, and you have to bring that clout with you. Colorado does, and they need to go ahead. I agree what he just said with Arizona. If Arizona is available, you take them now, because I'd rather be proactive than reactive. And if Florida State leaves, I don't think they're going to the Big 12. I would suspect they would be in the SEC. And if that starts to happen, the ACC starts to fall apart, well, then you're looking at a whole new group of a Power 5, either going something in the SEC, Big 10, and the Big 12, everybody. So you're making those 4 power conferences, whatever it might be. But if it does fall apart, it's on them. Looking for West Virginia to buy out after we just paid in half the times for that. And we're short right now. WVU is short in the shortfall for money, even after the $40 million that they've been receiving for the past 5 years, because the other years they were taking the split of the payout for what they're doing and repaying back the Big 12 for buying them out of the Big East. So when you go ahead and you do all that and you look at it, there's no way West Virginia has to look and go from they still destabilize themselves in a stability Big 12 program to an ACC that you're not sure about the future. That would be insanity.
Exactly. Yeah, the only way West Virginia should go to the ACC is if Notre Dame says we're going. If Notre Dame were to say we're going to the ACC, that would stabilize the ACC, and then you'd be better off there. But that's not going to happen. So West Virginia to the ACC, yes, it'll give you guys a few of your rivalry games, which would be awesome. It'll save you millions in travel, but you're going to lose money in the long run. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I agree. There's, it's a nothing burger out there to me, this talk about West Virginia and the ACC, because, yeah, I agree with you, Wolfman. West Virginia could not afford to buy out.
Remember, I worked there for
right
12 years. I know exactly economically what's happening, and they have no chance, no ability to go and do that.
And I see, and this is something that's been discussed on a lot of platforms. And you mentioned this a while ago about research money and all this money these universities get by being in the Pac-12, right? And this research money, but that does not fund that baseball team. That don't fund that soccer team and stuff. That comes out of the athletic budget. And if you need some more athletic budget, and you can't get a deal out in the Pac-12, you don't have no choice but to jump conference and hope for something, to sustain where you're at right now. And because you can't just take money out of research money that's been given to the university and start funding your baseball team with it. That doesn't work. Tag, I'm sorry, I was interrupting you a while ago. You was going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that, Wolfley, one thing that I'm hearing, and I couldn't believe this. I mean, but I'm hearing that Florida State has an invite, a standing invite. It's not recent. I guess they had a standing invite to the Big Ten. And Florida State really wants in the Big Ten over the SEC.
I would not be surprised by that whatsoever. I mean, in the Big Ten, to pick up a Florida school, and especially of what is Florida State, you got to think about it. I don't know if you've noticed this, but Florida State has got $200 million in renovations right now. They just came back, or they went a couple of years ago and looked at the Cowboys facilities and said, we want to be the Cowboys facilities. And that's what they've been working on and putting all this money into it. So going into the Big Ten would not be a shocker whatsoever.
And let's be honest, the Big Ten, even though we win the championships, the Big Ten wins the pocketbook because they do make more money than the SEC. So, I mean, you are getting an additional, $10, $15 million by going to the Big Ten. So it would make more sense to me that Florida State would want to go there.
So I have a lot of people in chat asking me where Tony Altimore is and stuff, and that Tony should be in here. And you're right. I invited Tony on the show with us tonight, but Tony was busy and couldn't make it. But he did promise he would come in one night with us. So Tony will be in here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks with us. So,
what about chop liver?
No, no. You don't know who Tony is.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I won't. It's a long story, but we won't get into that story tonight. But anyway,
now Tony is my dad. Everybody says, even though he's 10 years younger than me, somehow he is my dad.
Yeah. So I enjoy. Here's the thing about this conference realignment crap to me. I love the fact that Colorado's coming to the Big 12. Absolutely. Would I love another team out of the Pac-12 to come? Sure. But at the same time, I don't want to see the Pac-12 destroyed. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see any conference, no power conference destroyed. I don't want my college football hurt. Hey, listen, there's some nights at 11 o'clock midnight here in the East Coast that I'm sitting there wide awake and wanting to watch some more football, and I can turn on a Pac-12 game, right? I don't want that to end. I want my football. And if these teams, a lot of these teams don't make it into a power conference, what are they going to do? Can the Pac-12 survive? Sure, because they can add Boise State and SMU or Rice or somebody like that right now, and automatically they become Power 5 teams because of the Autonomy 5 status that they carry. So any team that comes into them would automatically be elevated to Power 5. Does not mean they would be a respected Power 5 conference, taking teams like Rice and SMU and Boise State.
Excuse me, Joey, hang on a second. So you're saying you're going to lose USC, UCLA, possible Washington, Oregon, Colorado, and then you're going to replace it with Rice and all. You got a G5 program, bro.
Right,
That's
exactly.
Conference. I mean, you can't sit there and say, hey, you're going to lose all of this, and then you're going to still. Now, listen, let me tell you something. Thank God for the Pac-12 because I watch it every Saturday night.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm telling you what I said was about what was going on around the country and the ratings. But my ratings are at 11 o'clock. I'm watching those teams in the Pac-12, and I'm enjoying my football because I'm up till 2 o'clock in the morning. But that doesn't – I don't reflect the usual college football fan. I do not reflect that, and apparently neither do you, and because of the ratings don't show it, and that's what I'm talking about. It's all about the ratings and the perception and what the relevation is, and that's why the Pac-12 is having such difficulty making a TV deal.
Yeah,
well, there is one team out there, the Wolf League. There is one team out there that the Pac-12 could invite. Now, I don't see them being able to accept, but there is one team that could replace Colorado and be close to the same value, and that's Air Force, only because it's a military. There's a lot of Air Force personnel, but unfortunately, the Pac-12 has invited Air Force 4 times, and the Pentagon has turned them down every time. Do you agree with that? Do you think Air Force would be a good candidate if they were able to join?
Yeah, because anytime you can add a military institution like that, of the 4 or Navy, Army, and Air Force, you'd be doing good. Of the 3, I should say. I want to tell you, did you ever notice I got arrested at Air Force where I crossed the line when I went up there and it was visiting, and I was in a spot I shouldn't have been. So they stopped me for 2 hours. They held me and made sure I wasn't some bad dude. But I love Air Force and always been a friend of them. In fact, when I was head coach at Phoenix College, we used to play Air Force JV every year in a scrimmage, I should say. So
I do think, though, the Pac-12 needs to ask, send an invite. Sure. I know they'll probably get turned down, but to me, that would be the only option that the Pac-12 has right now of saving any face whatsoever.
It's not a bad call. It really isn't. Anytime, like I said, Air Force is strong. I've been there. I've seen them. I know what they do. And they got a following up there in Colorado. So, again, Air Force is good. Colorado State won't do that for you, though.
No. Colorado State is a good college. They're just not going to move the needle.
Correct.
Well, the problem with the academies, there's not going to be any NIL packages for those guys. The Pentagon would never allow that. So
right.
How can they compete in a Power 5 league?
Right.
Well, how could you compete? You're independent anyways. You're playing Power 5 teams. Navy, don't they play Notre Dame every year? But I'm saying is, if you're going to go ahead and go in there, you always have that backing. No matter what, you got that funding. You have that perception of an academy. And I understand what he's saying, and I'm saying, yeah, I agree with him. The Air Force would be, and the NIL, to me, first of all, they're going into regulations with the Manchin Tuberville or the Moran Blumenthal Booker thing, whatever when they go with that NIL. So that's going to be changing the landscape as well. Don't know how that affects the academies, but they're going to have to play in some kind of way of trying to figure it out, especially if the government is in control.
The bigger problem with the academies is, and not saying NIL wouldn't hurt, the transfer portal kills them because they're not getting, not many people want to transfer in. And the other thing is the height and weight requirements that they have. You can go overweight for 6 months and this and that, but the weight restrictions and the height for linemen would be the biggest problem, that and the transfer portal.
Yep. That's why they run the option.
Right. Exactly. They got to cut your knees in order
exactly.
to
Yeah. So speaking of Joe Manchin coming out with the NIL, I guess, bill, so to speak, in Senate, the thing I'm trying to do right now is set up an interview. So last year I got Joe Manchin over on Golden Blue Dude. I think everybody remembers that interview. I'm trying to get Joe Manchin on Mark Rogers this year, and so we can discuss this NIL situation with him. So cross your fingers, wish me luck, and if you and we will try to get Mark Rogers on the Voice of College Football at some point here before the season. I'm talking to Dale Wolfley, host of the Wolfman's Call, right here on this channel, Monday through Thursday at 4 o'clock. He has great guests, former coaches, players, current coaches, players. He gets them all. Wolfman, how do you do that, man? It's like you just pick up the phone and say, hey, be here, and they're there.
No, brother, I've been there since 1981. They can't get rid of me. That's the problem. They tried, and that's what I do. I stay in there, but made a lot of friends, a lot of brothers WVU and sisters as well, and of course, being there for a long time. My older brother, I played there, I coached there, I worked there, alumni guy there for the sports. I mean, broadcast there for 10 years. You just can't get rid of me, man. And now I've gone on my own and reaching out and trying to spread my wings a little bit and go to the university, but also cover the rest of the country to some degree.
Yeah, and because you have a brother that does color analyst for Pittsburgh Steelers and a play-by-play for Arizona Cardinals, right?
Oh, they're both color guys, both analysts.
Both color guys.
Yeah, you can't get them. You don't want to hear their voice the whole time calling the plays. They're not like you got like my voice, that gruff voice. So you just want to hear that analyst come in and tell you what's going on, and they do a great job though. Greg's at Pittsburgh. He's the oldest brother. Ronnie's the middle brother. He's with the Cardinals, and I'm the third one. So that's it. The three Wolfleys there for at least that batch, and then we have our batch after us. So we got a lot more coming up there in the Wolfley clan.
Yeah, so be sure you subscribe to this channel. Tune in every Monday through Thursday for the Wolfman. It's called The Wolfman's Call. It's a great show, and you don't want to miss it. You get great interviews with legendary coaches like Don Nealon. He had Bob Pruitt on the other day, which was an awesome. So,
Yeah, he was good there. Gave me, what? I go and I get these guys out there, and they teach me. I mean, here I am. I'm in my 50s, and I'm still learning, man. We had David Duck Riley on, who's head of the Glazier clinics all across the nation, and he's head of the director in acquisition. And the guy has worked with 4 NFL teams and just so much experience and knowledge. I mean, I'm overwhelmed by it. It's not about me, man. It's about the guest and what they bring to the table.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you got a great show over there. I enjoy it. I always have to watch it on late, though. I don't get to watch it live. I'm always really busy that time of day, but I do go back and watch it at a later time and stuff. It's always a great show.
I'm glad you have a job, Joey.
Huh?
I'm glad you have a job.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So let's get back to the conversation at hand here. All right. So if we're talking Colorado's coming to the Big 12, we know this for sure. And we've got to have a team that's going to follow them. I'm sure it's going to happen. I mean, could we stay at 13? Yes. But it's most likely we're going to go to 14. We've mentioned some teams around here that out of the pack. We've mentioned UConn. We've mentioned Gonzaga, things like that. Is there a team out there that might surprise you if they get taken, even if it's a Power 5 school? So let's say the Big 12 was to take Washington State. That would shock the crap out of me. When they would maybe have a chance to get at one of the 4 corners. But Utah's a great school. Should the Big 12 be pursuing Utah? I think they should myself. I think it's a great culture fit in the Big 12, and Utah would make a great addition for the 14th team.
See, now I would hold off on Utah. And here's why. Utah is a great team the last, since they beat Alabama in 2008, they've done wonderful things, okay? But my thing is, all around, Utah would not be one of the top. I mean, you guys are looking at Arizona, great basketball. Big 12, let's face it, I'm not going to badmouth your football because I grew up, my uncles were Iowa State alum. So I've been to a lot of Big 8 games. But you guys are great basketball. So you want a school that has at least decent basketball to come in. Utah is not that school, and Arizona is, I don't know. Utah doesn't move the needle as much as a lot of teams in the ACC. So why go to 15 teams or 14 teams, and take a team?
But see, Jeff, here's my problem with Arizona. And I don't know this for a fact. I'm sure it is a fact. You and as well as Tony Altamore have both told me they have the exact same regions. Arizona and Arizona State, they have the exact same regions. So one won't leave without the other.
Well, they do have the exact same regions, and that is true. And Dr. Crow, believe it or not, from Arizona State, has more pull than Dr. Robbins. That has been known. But Arizona and the regions that are pulling for Arizona are very upset right now with Arizona State siding with Cal and Stanford, all these votes in not allowing expansion. And I don't know that Arizona would get, we all watched the voting, or maybe you guys didn't. You all heard the voting in Colorado was 9-0. You're not going to get that at Arizona. There will be a couple regions that will vote no. But I do think that now there's enough tension between Arizona and Arizona State right now, and what's going on. I think Arizona has the votes to say goodbye to Arizona State.
Okay.
And I think Arizona State is going to be held down by Dr. Crow, unfortunately.
So
that's a shame.
One thing that I look at teams that we bring in, teams we take in, and we take in Colorado, worst team in the country last year, without a doubt, worst Power 5 program in the country.
Well, the worst Power 5 team in the last 10 years. I mean, look at the record. The last 10 years, they are the worst.
Yeah. So we're adding a team that's probably the worst football program in the country, without a doubt, over the last decade. And so then if we go and bring in an Arizona, we're not bringing in much in football. They've not been very good either for quite a while. They're getting better. Not knocking Arizona at all. They've got a great basketball program for sure. But let me ask this. So the Big 12 is known for its polarity top to bottom, right? We've got a great conference. There's a lot of polarity. Every team can beat anybody. It doesn't matter if you're at the top of the Big 12 and you're playing the team at the bottom of the Big 12. You know you're in a dogfight and you could get beat. That's just how it is. Look at TCU last year coming to Morgantown against West Virginia. West Virginia, one of the worst teams in the conference. TCU, one of the best teams in the conference. It took everything they had to get by West Virginia. Everything they had and more. So there's a lot of polarity in the Big 12. I don't want that to be lost. Does Colorado bring that with them, you think? Are they parallel with the Big 12? I don't think so. What do you think?
I don't think so right now. Not even close. But you give them 3 years and they will be. I truly believe that.
How about you, Wolfman?
Well, first of all, do you guys all know what team that Deion's put together? Because it's not the same team. It's been there for the last 2 years. It's not the same players. All right. So again, what has he got? I don't know what he has. I'm not gonna go out and say he's gonna have a winning season, meaning that he's gonna go 7-5. I don't know what he's gonna do. I know he's gonna win more in one game. I'll tell you that much. But he revamped the entire team, and he didn't just take freshmen now. He didn't just take sophomores now. He took guys that are 3-4 star guys that have been playing some years. I mean, you go and look at WVU. He took Taj Alston. How much would WVU right now love to have Taj Alston on that defensive line of scrimmage? How much would they love to have? Well, that's in every spot that Deion filled that role. I mean, so again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how many he's going to win. I do know this. He is coached, and his coaches are legit. He's brought in legit coaches. I don't care about what you say about Deion, primetime, flash, or whatever. His coaching staff is not flash in the pan. And he had proven in the past with some of his coaches that they've won in the other league where he was at in Jackson State. Or not Jackson State. Yeah, Jackson State, yes. All right, so he won there. And he won decisively. And because he brings in the players. And I want to tell you something else, man. I don't care what you say about coaches are great. Coaches are this, coaches are that. If you got the Jimmys and Joes, you got the chance to go. And I'm telling you, and that's what he has done, no matter what the coaching can do. Although he's got respectable coaches on staff. They're not a flash in the pan. So, again, what do they do? I don't know. I can't disagree with you guys. I can't say that they're going to be successful. But I will tell you this, is it's a whole different team. You can't judge Colorado today what was last year. You can't. They're not the same team. I mean, that's what he's taking all the heat about because he got rid of 80% of his team. And so now he's got a team in there that's not the same. So can he put them all together? I don't know. I guess that would be the big question coming into this year. Can you transform a whole team just like the pros do with all of that, what they do? They can change it year to year, win year to year. Can Colorado? This is a great experiment. This is an experiment that I'm waiting to see what happens. But I'm not going to – I don't bet against Deion Sanders because you know what? He's not called prime for nothing.
Well, and the reason I said 2 to 3 years, though, was, look at Nick Saban. He didn't revamp Alabama the first year. Now, Riley did revamp USC, which is kind of a little different story. But with the new transfer portal, I mean, Deion was able to get guys immediately that you couldn't have done 10 years ago. So, but I do think within 2 or 3 years, Deion will definitely right the ship and, have them at least competing.
But then he jumps, right?
I think he does. I think he jumps.
No, I can't disagree with that. But you know what? Colorado should say thank you because I think he saved Colorado being a 1-11 team, as you said, the poorest team in the past decade. And I think he's brought them just by what he has done into this opportunity to save the school program. So even if he does jump in 3 years, hallelujah. Thank you, primetime.
Yeah, because that's the question. Does the Big 12 take Colorado if Deion was not there?
I don't think so.
You know what I mean? Did Deion give them the lifeboat?
Yeah, maybe. You might be right there on that.
I don't know for sure, but would you take a 1-11 team that you didn't just totally do a whole transfer over prime time? I mean, what's the biggest stories of the offseason? It all comes from Colorado. It all comes from Colorado and what he's doing. And you got head coaches that are traditional head coaches taking shots at primetime. That can mean one thing, only one thing. They don't like it because he's doing he's a schmoover, he's a shaker. That's what he does. And they're saying is, well, I don't know about that. Well, you know what? Again, it's the greatest experiment in the last 10 years.
Hey, when Nick Saban throws shade at you, you're doing something right.
Yeah. You're right, man.
But I'll say this. There's no doubt about it that in today's college football world, you got to have leaders that take charge. And there's no doubt about that. Colorado right now is taking charge. They went out and got him a great coach in Deion Sanders. They got a big name. They promoted it well. They've done a great job there. And then on top of that, they're the first team this year to just jump and say, we're going to the Big 12. So they're keeping themselves right there in the spotlight. And, and if Deion can get this program turned around in the next couple of years, next 2-3 years, they will be competing for Big 12 championships.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, let me ask Jeff this question. Jeff, do you think Colorado knew exactly all they were going to get with Deion when they hired him? Now, I think they knew he'd make some great splash and be this and that. But as big as he's gotten, do you think they knew that?
No, I don't think anybody could know. I mean, I think they knew the splash was going to, but not like this. I mean, they were hoping to get a little bit, but I don't know. Deion is just Deion. I mean, he's kind of like the Elton John of music, the Michael Jackson. I mean, he brings something that maybe better coach like a Nick Saban don't bring what Deion bring. I mean, it's just different, but at the same time, it's exciting. Having him at Colorado has revigorated the whole program, the whole state. I mean, Colorado has sucked for 10 years, and they're getting their fans back, and they're excited for once to go to the games this year. And even if Colorado goes, 4-8 this year, they're still going to be super excited for next year because,
Oh, yeah. That's a huge improvement.
Yeah, they could have paid Deion twice the money they're paying him and still got more than twice their value of what he's brought.
I'm going to post a link in StreamYard. If anybody has a question they'd like to ask us and want to come in and talk for a second, we're not going to go much longer, but I'll let you guys come in and call in, ask a quick question and things.
Hey, so Joey, can I answer Paxton?
Sure.
Paxton had a question a while back. He was talking about UNLV and the Las Vegas market. He wanted our thoughts. I like UNLV. I like Nevada. The problem is UNLV and Nevada are Arizona and Arizona State of the 60s and 70s before they went to the Pac-12. They're not great academic schools. They're not really great athletically, really. I mean, UNLV had a run back when they had their basketball coach in the 90s. We all know about that, but I think if they were given a chance to go to the Pac. They might be able to do what Arizona and Arizona State did in the 70s. And, but unfortunately, I don't see them. They're not going to move the needle for the Pac. The Pac needs something way bigger than them.
Yeah. So we do have a caller in the back room. Bring him in right now. It's Mr. Jackson Johnson. How you doing, Jackson?
I'm doing great, gents. How are y'all doing?
Hey, Jackson.
Great. And before we get started, Kenny, I see you in the back room, but it's saying your device is not connected, so you might want to go out and come back in, and I'll bring you in after Jackson's done here.
Ty Guy, I remember a little while ago you were talking about how it's probably not a good idea to add the rest of the four corner schools to the Big 12. I was thinking of at least one of the four corner schools and two of the biggest rivals for West Virginia. Utah, the Pac-12 school that's added to the Big 12, and Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh.
Well, you have to let that ACC grant of rights either run out or you got to hope that 8 teams run from the ACC and it dissolves. I don't want that to happen. I don't want the ACC to dissolve.
Neither do I. I don't want to see any of these power conferences.
There's numbers out there that Florida State's buyout, if they decide to leave on August the 15th, their buyout, of course, it'll be negotiated, would be like $500 million. That's $500 million to get out of the ACC.
Well, no, Joey, they got to pay the 120 exit. The grant of rights, as long as they go to a ESPN school, and the ESPN is willing to pay the ACC the same amount, then that drops. But the problem with Utah, and again, I can just tell you the numbers and this and that. By adding Utah, what does the Big 12 really gain? Because you got BYU already from Utah, and I'm not here to debate whether Utah or BYU is better, but you've already got BYU. So why not take an Oregon State to get you a new market, get you a Washington State to get you a new market? Now, the one school that I would love to see go into the Big 12, but they're too big of an ego and this and that, would be Stanford. Now, it's not a basketball move, but Stanford is by far the greatest championship college of all time. They win more championships in Olympic sports than anybody else. But why settle for Utah when you already have 90% of the Utah market, and Utah's not that big of a state?
Well, after this year, we're not going to see the Red River rivalry in the Big 12. We're not seeing the Bedlam after this year. The Holy War rivalry, that will be the biggest rivalry for the Big 12. Because, let's be real. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of people getting excited about Kansas State.
Yeah, but see, starting next year, you got the biggest rivalry ever to happen. You're going to have West Virginia and Colorado with the John Denver rivalry. Okay, so does it get bigger than West Virginia?
Hey, that's a good name. That's a good name for that one, isn't it? The John Denver rivalry.
That's right.
I believe the last time West Virginia Colorado played was in Week 5 of 2009 on Thursday Night Football on ESPN.
Yeah, I was coaching. Yeah, you don't have to remind me. That's right. Thank you.
We won, didn't we, Wolfman? We won last time we played.
No, we did not win that game, and
I wasn't trying to remind you, Wolfman.
Yeah, that's right. That's enough of your buff information there, Jackson. No, I'll tell you what. But that was back before Colorado really had all of its issues. I think they're starting to come, but again, it was still full stadium on a Thursday night. They had a blackout, in fact, if I remember right. And it was a beautiful atmosphere, great college experience. Have you ever been up there to see it? Glow in the morning in the mountains.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. And obviously Jeff's right about academics are prestigious. And to go there and to be that's an event that people in the Big 12 will enjoy. Travel there. It's like, you're losing out on Austin, right? The travel there. You're losing out on Norman. Well, this is a great place for Big 12 fans to go. There's a lot of Big 12 fans that like to travel the circuit And even though it's not the Virginia Techs for West Virginia, it's not the Pitts for West Virginia, it is an experience. I used to go there, and I published my steaks every Friday night. I put out pictures of it because I had the best steaks in the land in the Big 12. Go down to Texas Tech. I mean, it's the double nickel. I mean, there's all these places that have fun because people like to travel that can afford to. That's the only problem. If you have to be able to afford it. But if you do, there are some really cool stops along the way because, like Morgantown, Norman, you go to the other schools in the Big 12 that they're all about Big 12 sports. And that's why West Virginia fit in well, mind-wise, is that because Morgantown and West Virginia, the state, cares about basketball, cares about wrestling, cares about their track and field. They care. Well, that's like the other Big 12 schools because there's not a whole lot of NFL teams in the vicinity to detract from there. And when that's how I thought West Virginia fit in well in the mindset. You go to Ames, you talk about Iowa State. I mean, there's nothing there. Des Moines, we travel to Des Moines football, and we don't even get we stay to Des Moines and travel an hour into Ames when you stay overnight. I mean, there's just these schools that are located where they really care about the sports and the school, and that's why I love the Big 12. Again, because you don't always see that in all the schools, and that's why it's fun to travel to these places. And up there at Colorado, it's not going to be any different. It's going to be an excellent destination.
So I'm looking it up right now. In 2008, they beat us, but in 2009, last time we played, we beat them 35-24, and that was in Morgantown.
I remember a little bit about that Colorado team. They were the team that started the 7-game losing streak for Kansas that year. After Kansas lost to Colorado, they blew up. They didn't even win another game after that.
All right, Jackson, I've got a couple more callers in the back room. I'm going to have to let you go for now, but appreciate you coming in and stuff.
Thanks for having me on, Joey.
Thanks, Jackson. Have a good one. All right, so we got Mountaineer Larry McKinney. How you doing, Kenny?
Hey,
you have a question for us? Good. You have a question for us, brother?
Yes, I've got 3 questions. All right, my first is I've had friends from Seattle, Washington, tell me that there's been closed door meetings been happening that especially at Oregon State, they've been on like conference calls with some of the other schools, and from my understanding, from what I'm hearing, is that Oregon State, Oregon, and possibly Arizona are all jumping. What do y'all think about that?
Like I said, I don't want to overload us with West Coast teams. That's how I feel about it. I want some East Coast teams. I think we take one more and stop and hold out and see if we can get some East Coast teams. I really do. I think, leave the Pac-12 alone. If you're going to take one more team from there, okay. Let them rebuild the Pac-12 from what's out there. And then, go out and get an East Coast team here in a few years or maybe even earlier if something happens.
I can tell you for a fact, Oregon State has contacted the Big 12 many, many times in the last 48 hours. And if the Big 12 were to call Oregon State and say, we'll invite you, they would sign tonight. But unfortunately, Corvallis would be a great addition for the Big 12. They would be better than Oregon, not from a play, but from a cultural fit. I mean, they fit with the Big 12. The problem is, like Joey said, you got to slow down. You can't add all these teams. Now, obviously, if Oregon and Washington said we want in the Big 12, you sign them. But let's be honest, do you really sign them? Because they want the Big 10. So it's just going to be a stopgap. So you got to slow your roll a little bit. Take Arizona immediately, and then let's catch a breath. Let's see if August 15 does happen. If Florida State bails and Clemson bails and North Carolina wants to bail, you might get lucky and maybe nobody wants a Miami. Maybe you could get, you could get Virginia Tech. You could get Pitt. You might get Georgia Tech, which ain't a great team right this minute, but you get the the Atlanta market stuff. Louisville's perfect Big 12 team. So wait on the West Coast. Colorado, BYU, and Arizona will give you enough on the West Coast.
Yeah, I think the Big 12 needs a West Division and an East Division. How do you feel, Dale? What are you thinking? Before you answer, Dale, I'm gonna bring in somebody else that's in the back room here with us because he'll have an opinion on this too, and that's Mr. Twisted Rooster.
What's up, Joey?
Hey, Rooster.
Hey, Rooster.
Dale, what do you think? Two divisions, East and West. That's how I feel like the Big 12 should look at this.
No, you have to. I mean, you gotta split it up anyways, and regional probably be the best to do it. I mean, there's just geographically you have to do it that way. So you can try to minimize the travel issues. You can try to, equal out the parts that you think are fair. And it's a no-brainer. They're going to have to do it. So what are you talking about? I'm talking about Iowa State being in the East, okay? That we're talking about. That's the East. You got, Houston being in the East. That's what I'm talking about with that. So again, even it out, but get off the UConn thing, Joey. Get off the UConn thing, man. But bring Jack. I've been up there. I coached up there. They don't give a darn about football. They care about basketball.
Right.
Well, let me ask you guys a question though. You want to divide it up, and I understand travel-wise, East-West makes sense. But honestly, wouldn't North-South be a little better? Because ideology, you guys have more in common with the Kansas and Iowa State than you do with UCF, with Houston. I mean,
I think Kansas State's in the East, though, Jeff. I do.
You would throw them in the – okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, you have to because you don't have enough teams in the East not to. You got to take your Texas Tech. You got to take your TCU. Those schools will be in the West, in my opinion, and with Baylor as well. But Houston is East Texas, so you can still fit them in there.
Right.
Kansas State in there. Maybe even Oklahoma State. I don't know, though. That's probably too far west. But I would stay with the Kansases for sure in the East. But you're right. I can't argue with the North or South. You can't. I mean, either way, you got to get 6 to 1, half dozen to the other.
Well, bottom line, the Big 12 needs to bring some East Coast teams in. So
right. I want to ask Wolfman. Appreciate you having me on the show the other night, buddy.
Yeah, brother.
The joy is West Virginia. You guys are kind of the, other than UCF, y'all are outstanding school out of the Big 12, right? As far as travel. To me, the Big 12 would make sense to add Georgia Tech, one of the Virginia schools. You're not going to get both. You don't want both, really. One of the Virginia schools, and then that's 2.
Pitt.
And then go after, like I said, you're going west and you're going east. You're going to be a coast-to-coast conference, right? So you get, like Wolfman said, you get the Atlanta market, and Ty Guy said that. You get the Atlanta market with Georgia Tech. It falls in line with UCF. You get one of the Virginia schools that falls in line with West Virginia. And maybe one of the North Carolina schools, like NC State, or one of those guys to jump into the Big 12.
Duke, you don't get no better basketball than Duke.
Yeah, Duke. If you're going to talk UConn, why not talk Duke?
Yeah.
And
now,
they had a decent football program last year.
I'll say this, and as a West Virginia fan, I talk to a lot of Pitt fans, and a lot of them are good friends of mine. Talkus Pitt's a good friend of mine. We talk quite often. I think that if you ask about any Pitt fan who they would want in the ACC, they're going to tell you West Virginia. And I think if you talk to a lot of Mountaineer fans, probably most of them, and you ask them who they would want in the Big 12 with them, they would tell you Pitt. I just think that's a great rivalry, and it's just something that's got to, at some point, work itself out to where they're back in the same conference, or at least playing each other every year. But same conference would be even better, because that's a really heated rivalry, and I'm not talking just on the game day. That's talking that Mountaineer fans sit and watch all the Pitt games, hoping like hell they lose them, hoping they lose them.
But Joey, can I tell you something? If what's being spoken in the Big Ten behind the doors and that are true, and Florida State does request to go to the Big Ten, and Clemson is also requesting the Big Ten, I truly believe, because with what ESPN wants and the SEC wants, the SEC has always added AAU schools and flagship schools. There's only 2 schools out there, Virginia and North Carolina. We need more teams. I truly believe that if we cannot get a Clemson, I truly believe we contact West Virginia. I think if Clemson is not one of the teams we're going to grab, I think the SEC will call West Virginia. I truly do.
Well, I know we're on their short list. The short list came out for the SEC a couple of months ago. West Virginia was on that list. Doesn't
Right.
mean that we're getting an invite tomorrow. It just means we're on the short list, right? So, there's a lot that would need to happen for that would ever happen, though. So,
But do you think if Clemson, what do you think? Well, I mean, if Clemson's gone, that's kind of the SEC's big one that, the Big Ten wants Notre Dame, the SEC wants Clemson. So if Clemson's gone, that has to open a seat up for you guys.
I think it would. I would say is that there's going to have to be that. Then all of a sudden, the whole thing is going to change. The whole landscape of the conferences, college football, will definitely change if you see West Virginia jumping ship. Because right now, I'm telling you, in my heart, I know that West Virginia cannot afford to jump anywhere.
No.
And to go ahead and do it, there's got to be a huge carrot somewhere else.
Well, no, the SEC would loan you the money, kind of like the Big Ten did to Maryland if we wanted you.
yeah.
Well, but how bad do you really want it that bad? That's what I'm saying. Is there's a whole lot of things, the landscape changing. And hey, if you wanted to go in the SEC, that's fine. But then you get all these people saying, well, since WVU's been to the Big 12, they haven't had a lot of success. You're gonna have worse than that then. Well, what about that department? I mean, now you're headed down to the SEC where you're in the same boat as all the Alabamas, Georgias, and now you got to go ahead and recruit against that. I mean, at least in the Big 12, you have an opportunity. And I won't even get on that subject, Joey, about the Big 12 and West Virginia's success. I won't even do that to you. But I will say this, is that West Virginia goes to the SEC. I mean, hello, Kentucky, because you're looking at the same kind of thing. Hello, that way, because again, you'll be the most northern in the SEC to go play against all those southern teams. It'll be extremely difficult.
Well, West Virginia's had some success in the Big 12. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We've had some success. We've had 10-win seasons, 9-win seasons and stuff in the Big 12 many, many times. The problem is the last few years.
How many?
Well, let's see. 2016 was 10-win season.
That was 10-2. Yep. And we were 8-4 with Will Greer. So not many 10-win seasons in the Big 12.
Well, yeah, but look how bad Missouri did, and then they came in over to the SEC and won 2 East championships. So it's possible.
And nothing since.
Yeah,
They fell apart since. So, and that's what Wolfman's going with this. You're talking about Missouri was able to recruit in the Big 12, so they came over with really good teams. They moved to the SEC. Now all of a sudden they're recruiting against Alabama, LSU, Georgia. That's tough.
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. So now the recruiting.
Right.
The recruiting ground is not very big for Missouri right now.
Right. But I want to ask Wolfman this as a former player for West Virginia, right? You played football. If West Virginia was a SEC school and they're a standalone school, the northernmost school. All right. So West Virginia comes to you as a SEC school. They're toting the banner. They're carrying the flag. You're competing against Big Ten that's recruiting your state, right? But if West Virginia pops up and they're dipping into the recruiting areas of Ohio State, Penn State, but West Virginia is toting that SEC banner, and that's what they're selling you on, right? You're now going to play in the best conference in college football.
The best top-headed conference in college football, yes.
But what I'm saying, that's what a coach is going to try to sell you on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Why would you not, right?
But and they're carrying that SEC. Hey, look, you're going to be on national TV every week.
We're on national TV every week with Big 12.
And
No, we got Big 12's got the television deal, man. We got $44 million last year for television deal. We're Big 12 all the time, or on there, except for the one that you do an FCS school. That's the other.
Well-
You're on every week on national TV, ESPN or Fox.
Yeah, we are. Rooster. We're on national TV every single week.
But
There is one game that's on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, it's the FCS.
Yeah, and
That's Duquesne. Yep.
but this is where I'm going. This is a recruiting thing, and I know maybe you guys don't keep up with the SEC. South Carolina has been very successful in the DMV area, right? Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, that little area up in that corner. The reason why is South Carolina totes that banner of being the closest SEC school to that area for their families to travel, watch a football game. We got a lot of great recruits out of that area last year, including Nick Harbor, who was a 5-star. West Virginia could tote that banner because y'all are actually closer.
But now, Rooster, let me ask you a question. How successful has that made South Carolina in the SEC? Be
Well,
honest.
It's only a 2-year pool right now, Joy. We don't know.
Yeah.
Why is it a 2-year pool?
4 stars, and we got a 5-star out of that area, and we have.
You're going off the last 2 years. I mean, South Carolina's been playing football since I played South Carolina back in 1988, 89, 90. I mean, they've been in the SEC all that time. Their records have not.
Well, they came over in '92.
But,
Okay, my bad. It's 92. So
Yeah, no, but you were, yeah.
you can't go 2 years and say, well, we got our 4 stars there for that. I mean, I don't see how. I appreciate what you're saying, that they're improving, because I think you got a good coach, number one, with a Beamer. He knows how to coach. You watch his dad coach all those years. And number two is he's got a lot of energy, and South Carolina's got resources. I believe you can be successful in South Carolina, but that you can't sit there and say South Carolina's been a top dog in the SEC since 92.
but what I'm saying is, I'm not talking about South Carolina being the top dog. I'm talking about West Virginia using the SEC banner to recruit against the Big Ten.
Oh, you can't lose when you recruit SEC to begin with.
But
You can lose in a game day, but you can't lose in recruiting, telling you're the SEC. It's the best conference in college football, hands down. So you can't lose, but you can't win on game day a lot of times too. And that's a problem that's going to hurt you when you're saying, yeah, we're SEC, but yeah, by the way, is you're going to go play Georgia and Alabama and LSU and Ole Miss and Texas A&M and go down the list. I mean, it's a hard list. And you want to sit there and you say, hey, well, listen, the Big 12 doesn't play national. Yeah, we do play a national team every week. So we can recruit on that because you are on ESPN Plus. You are on Fox. And you can go ahead and use that to recruit because it doesn't matter geographically anymore if you're in a Power 5 conference, except maybe looking out to the Pac-12, which is, again, what we all started about ragging on in the beginning, is because you don't see those games. But as far as Big 10, as far as SEC, the Big 12 games are just as much seen on TV as anyone else in the Power 3 teams. Am I wrong?
You're right. Well, so West Virginia, we recruit against Penn State right now. We recruit against Ohio State, and we recruit against Pitt and a lot of those Eastern teams, Maryland and stuff. And we win a lot of those recruits. I think of Rodney Gallagher. He was wanted by Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and he came to West Virginia. We get a player on campus, we generally sign them. We've got some really nice facilities. We've got a great culture, a great atmosphere at Morgantown. It's probably one of the greatest college football cultures I've ever seen is in Morgantown. And I've been to quite a few stadiums. So I love Morgantown. So we recruit against some big names right now, and we don't always beat them, but we do take players from them. So I don't agree that if being in the SEC would change a whole lot for our recruiting footprint, except for being able to hang that SEC banner. But at the same time, if you're in the SEC and you can't beat Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and stuff, what good is it to raise that banner? You've got to be able to compete. We've always been able to compete in the Big 12. Oklahoma, Texas, supposed to be the two best teams in the Big 12, right? Hey, Texas the only team. We're the only team Texas has a bad record to. They don't. They got a better record against everybody in the Big 12 except for West Virginia. Oklahoma has always struggled to beat West Virginia except for like one year. You can go back and look and go back to our first year in. Tavon Austin had almost 400 yards rushing against friggin' Oklahoma. Barely beat us. And every year they barely beat us. 56, 55, 56, 54. It's always been that. So
Great
West
defensive
Virginia. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Great defensive struggles. Hey, listen, Joey, we beat Oklahoma last year, but we haven't beat them since the Fiesta Bowl before that.
Right.
We were in the Big East with Rich Rod left there. All right. Oklahoma's owned West Virginia. I don't care what you say what the score was. They still own them. I've been there. I traveled with the team. I watched it. They've owned them.
Yeah.
Texas has not. West Virginia has a better record against Texas than, in that league. But remember, we're talking about the last 4 years because Neil Brown has been there. So when you're talking about stealing this, we haven't been able to retain our players. We can recruit. Neil Brown has good classes. He has top 30, 35 classes in the country, but we don't keep them. And that's been the problem because we can't retain them because of the transfer portal. So we've lost them in that direction. We've lost our older guys. So that's where the success has fallen for West Virginia. SEC recruiting, you better believe that's a cool thing to say. We belong in the SEC. Don't get me wrong. If we win the SEC, I'd be waving that West Virginia flag with pride. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I also know insanity. And you know what insanity is? Trying to go up against a Georgia and Alabama and try to win out of 10 games. You're not going to win more than 2. And
I still am a
is.
firm believer. I'm still a firm believer in culture at a program, right? So at West Virginia Mountaineers, they've got a great culture. They got a blue collar atmosphere. Just you work hard, and you succeed by working hard and stuff. And I look at this transfer pool today, and these players jumping, all these players going all over the place. Look at Deion Sanders out there at Colorado, bringing in all those transfers. Where's this culture? Now the culture, now you've got guys from all over the place coming in there that you know nothing about. You have no idea what their family's like, how they live, what their philosophy is. They might have been a great player at West Virginia, but that was the culture of West Virginia. That's blue collar culture. Now they're going to Colorado. Might be a completely different culture out there, but Deion, and you may not be able to play up to your strength because of that. I do not like the transfer portal. They need to get rid of it. They need to make transfers at one time only, like always, and make you sit out a year, period.
Well, that's the Tommy Tuberville, Joe Manchin bill. One transfer.
Yeah.
You get within the 3 years, and unless you're a grad. But that's what that bill is. So you got to.
And what two better senators to put a bill together than former football guys, right?
All right, I got to leave if we're talking about Tubby.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
But so we're having a great show, but we really do need to end this thing here real soon. But Kenny, you have one more question. Let me go ahead and shoot it to us.
Okay. Now I've been hearing also that by 2030 that the whole landscape of football, college football, is going to change. From what I'm hearing, it could be a Power 3 conference.
Yeah, but now wait a minute. Let me stop you there, Kenny, because I don't want to get into these big hypotheticals. I'm not for the hypothetical crap. I'm not. But the problem is college football has already changed. It's changing as we speak, right? Colorado's coming to the Big 12. College football is already changing. Where it lands, nobody knows. And I'm not going to get into hypotheticals about 5 years, 6 years down the road and where everybody's going to be. Because 6 years down the road, who knows where we'll be if this NIL doesn't get straightened out. We might just be watching Alabama, Georgia, USC, and Penn State or Ohio State play games. So a lot of things have to get figured out. So I'm not going to get into hypotheticals because we could go down a long road with hypotheticals.
The only thing I will say on that, though, Joey, is if the day ever comes, we get to the big SEC where it's 2 power conferences. And even though I'm an Alabama fan and it benefits me, that's a sad day. I don't want to see a Power 2. I already hate that we lost the Big East. I hate that we lost the Southwest. I hate that the Pac-12 might be going away. I like the regional games. I miss the old Big Eight. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm an old guy, so I remember, I was born in 70, so I remember all the old great conferences. And even though it's benefiting my team and, the Big Ten is getting benefit, I hate to see these super conferences. I really do, because maybe an Oregon State ain't a great team to everybody, and maybe Iowa State ain't a great team to everybody, and blah, blah, blah. But they all got passionate fans, and they've all got fans that's been with them for 40, 50, 60, 70 years, watching them and cheering them on. And yeah, maybe Iowa State will never win a national championship. Maybe Oregon State will never win a national championship. But at least they got a chance. At least they can try to do it. You know what I mean? And I hate to see any of the Power 5 teams be told that, you know what, you're not good enough for the Big Two, and you're done.
Yeah.
Well, I personally think that the Big 12 is making moves to make sure that doesn't happen. I think you see coming out of the Big 12 right now, they're going to add some teams to make sure it's never going to get to 2. It may get down to 3, but I don't think they'll ever get down to 2, just because the Big 12 is going to take on some good teams and put them under contract to keep them from getting to 2. There's too much money back in Oregon and teams like that they're not going to go to a group of 5 league. I just don't. I think at worst it'll be 3. Who knows what's going to happen with the ACC? There's a lot of money tied up in the future if teams try to bail out of that conference and get rid of contracts. But yeah, I agree with Ty Guy. Flagship universities, West Virginia as a flagship and the SEC could go into Big Ten territory. Since Big Ten's trying to get down in the SEC territory, it's going to be some backlash. So adding a West Virginia as a flagship university and West Virginia toting the SEC banner into recruiting areas that would damage Big Ten football teams, I can see that happen.
Hey, Twisted Rooster, what I'm seeing from you is you're using West Virginia as a tool, man, for the SEC. You're using West Virginia to go battle the Big Ten to go ahead and take back. Listen, let me tell you something. Right now is not the time for West Virginia to go ahead and put its big toe in the water to test the waters. Now is not the time. West Virginia needs to stay in stability where all these other Pac-12 schools want to be right now. Okay, they want to all be there. West Virginia is there. Do not upset the boat. Do not put your toe in the water. Keep going in stability until you at least improve with your past records and where you're standing in the Big 12. Because right now, you cannot say that West Virginia is a tier team that you want to invite. We don't have no Deion Sanders up there leading the band. We don't have him up there, even though Colorado's 1-11. We have right now a team that people are saying that we look like a Mid-American Conference team. Okay, the Big 12 coaches are saying it. West Virginia has to prove itself. West Virginia has to win before it can ever think about putting its toe in the water to test it.
I agree. Well, guys, it's been a great show. But I want to tell everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Be sure and sub up his channel. Come back Monday through Thursday with Wolfman there. Wolfman's Call. Great show with great coaches and players, player interviews, current players, former players, current coaches, former coaches. He gets them all. So be sure and watch that show Monday through Thursday at 4:00 and stuff. Also, be sure and hit Ty Guy up on Twitter. You will love some of his Twitter posts, won't they, Ty Guy?
What's your Twitter, Ty? What is it?
Well, see, they'll either love me or hate me. I'm kind of both ways. You'll hate me some days and love me other days. My Twitter is at rtide, the number 18, and then roll.
Rtide 18.
I got it up here on the screen. But for everybody in the chat, for the guys that called in, Jackson, Kenny, Rooster, appreciate you guys being here with us tonight and stuff as well. Wolfman, I appreciate you so much. You know that. Love you, brother.
Hey, I want to say Twisted Rooster was awesome on the Wolfman's Call. Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So thank you, Rooster.
Hey, Wolfman, you're awesome too, brother.
Thank you so much. All right. I'm out
All
of here,
right,
fellas. Thank you, brothers. Take
All
care.
right.
I
Thank
want to
you,
thank
Wolfman.
all of you for letting me come on, and Wolfley, you're a great guy, man. I think you're a legend in a lot of ways, including video breakdown. I just think the world of you, man.
Well, thank you so much. And I think the word of all you guys. Thanks for letting me be out here, man. It's very cool. God bless. Gotta go, man.
All right, Wolfman.
Have a good
See
one,
you.
Wolfman.
Yep, thank you. Bye.
Guys in the chat, appreciate everybody being here. We love you. Be sure and come back next Friday night with us, 8 o'clock. Who knows what's going to happen by then? We might have another Pac-12 team by then. Everyone have a great night, and we will see you later.